In today's video, you're gonna hate me. You see, last time we brought our Cybertruck to Moab, it performed rather poorly. Well, we are back in Moab, upping the ante with some much harder terrain. So we're gonna run this Cybertruck through the legendary Hell's Revenge Trail, see what it's like out in the rocks, see how the locking differentials work, and then we're gonna head to some higher speed running and see how the suspension and throttle calibration works when the speeds get a little bit higher. Before we do any of that, we have to do some disassembly on the truck. Let me explain. The Cybertruck has these fairings in front of the front wheels, which really reduce approach angle. Tesla says to remove these before trail use. So what we need to do is pull 3 clips here, remove a couple of nuts, and then pull the whole fairing off. Is it a little bit of a faff? Yes, a little bit. Is it perhaps out of the norm for a pickup? Not really. A lot of trucks have that lower hanging front valence. However, if they claim this to be the ultimate truck, compared to like a Raptor or a TRX or even like a Jeep Gladiator, you certainly wouldn't have to do any disassembly before you hit the trail. If there's any wonder on whether or not we're in Jeep territory, just take a little look around and your question should be answered. Feel pretty far removed from SoCal where this truck was born. So we need to air down the tires, and this presents a little bit of a problem because, first of all, 20-inch wheels. The last time I aired down a tire on a 20-inch wheel, this happened. G'day! And it's worth noting this Cybertruck is like 6,600 pounds, so it's a lot lighter than the 9,000 pound Hummer. It still is 6,600 pounds, so I want to take a few PSI out of these tires, not as many as I'd like because of these large wheels. And then we have another interesting issue. If I do have a flat, the Cybertruck doesn't come standard with a spare wheel. So you can option one, but you have to put it in this little tire condom, stick it in the bed, and it's just not a great solution. Problem number 2 is airing these tires back up because all of our compressors need a 12-volt battery, and of course, the Cybertruck runs on a 48-volt system, so I'm gonna have to go to a gas station. See, regardless of how this Cybertruck performs off-road, I'm gonna make at least somebody mad. Because the fanboys are gonna call me a hater if it doesn't do very well, and the haters are gonna call me a fanboy if it does pretty well. So I'm kind of in a tricky spot here. We have the new off-road update, which gets us, allegedly, locking differentials front and rear, new off-road modes, as well as a trail terrain mode, which is kind of like off-road cruise control. And we're gonna try all that out. Now, what I'm noticing right off the bat is that the accelerator programming feels a lot more progressive, a lot more linear. Gentle accelerator inputs are yielding much smoother results now, which is awesome. That's a good improvement. I'm also liking this new screen. So not only does it show you battery temp, motor temp, that kind of thing, it also shows you ground clearance, and it shows you your locking differential status along with your pitch and roll, along with your camera, so you can quickly access those cameras to know what you're getting into. So that is quite the improvement. Pretty impressed so far, but we haven't really tackled anything yet where we need those locking diffs, although that's probably about to change here very shortly. So I'm in the overland off-road mode, and we have a number of different surface selections: all-purpose rock, gravel, deep snow, and sand. Now I'm in the all-purpose mode, and what's nice about all-purpose is you can set the suspension to high. And when the suspension is in high, it's like 12 inches of ground clearance, which is pretty nuts. But it means that the suspension retains some ride quality. You're not topping out those air struts. If I go into the rock mode, well, that's going to automatically set me into very high. And then that's going to increase the ground clearance to about 14 inches, but it's also going to limit my articulation and really stiffen up the ride. Luckily though, I can manually set it down to high if I want. Now in rock mode, this is diffs open. Traction control programming feels so much better than it was last time I came out here. So the wheels are lifting, the brakes are grabbing, sending wheel speed to the tires on the slick rock, and we're traversing up these hills far easier than we were. So this is still open diffs, gently applying more accelerator. Oh, what an improvement. All right, I'll take that. See how the approach angle is on this really steep ledge? Pretty good. How about departure? Always a problem with a full-size truck. Folks, I'm actually kind of impressed. Now here's the deal. I'm not really that aired down, like hardly at all. We were over 50 PSI and we're fluctuating around like 40. That's a lot of pressure. That's more pressure than I should be running out here, but without a spare tire on 20-inch wheels, by myself, I don't have a support vehicle today, I'm not gonna go much below that. So I'm sorry, I know traction would be greatly improved, increase that contact patch if I aired down some, but I'm not gonna take that risk without a spare and no support vehicle out here. All right, so now we got a nice little hill climb here. This will be a good chance to try out our locking differentials. We're in very high mode. We go to the rock setting on the surface because that's very much what we're on right now. See if we have the approach angle for this. Taking it nice and slow. Will it let me 2-foot it? Not really. Oh! I think we ran out of approach angle.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll have to get a little creative here then.
A little bit of damage, Tommy.
What did I do? Oh, gee. Got a little bit of rock rash on her, Alex. Well, we're using it. I do apologize to my dad, though. So, clearly, even with 35s in very high mode, we didn't quite have the clearance. I'm going to try sticking more to the right, Alex, and we're going to see if we can get up that way. If not, we'll tackle some of these other potential options.
You got a terrible spotter with you today, apparently.
I know. More of a videographer than a spotter. It's like we pay you to be a videographer, not a spotter. How are we looking over here, Alex?
That looks better so far. Creep up slow. Yeah, you're good. Yeah, you're good.
All right, so we're gonna try to climb this here. Stay out of the bush. Easier said than done. Make sure our lockers are on. Oh, that was not good throttle control. Just went tipping down the hill. It's kind of tricky without a torque converter. Oh God, now we're dragging the tail.
Hold on, Tommy.
What now, Alex?
Well, we're just gonna try and save this GoPro
Before it's dead?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna have to come up with a better solution here. I'm gonna go into the extract ride height. Now is the time for extract mode. Oh, look at that. Now this is basically all the way topped out on the suspension, so it's very, very firm. You really only want this to get out of a tough situation, like I would argue we were in. But time to take a less aggressive line on this now. The departure angle is really the Achilles heel I'm finding so far with the Cybertruck. All right, still in extract mode. Look at those lockers work though. Those lockers are on. That is a true locking diff, if I've ever seen one. Oh yes, come on Tesla, that's that massive weight kind of holding us back a little bit. But it didn't matter, we were able to get up that rather challenging ledge, and now we're immediately going to take it out of extract mode because this is just unusable. We're going to go back to high. I am happy to report those diff locks work. You know, they did their job. They locked up both front and rear axle like a gasoline diff lock. The only challenge was, you know, compared to a traditional automatic, having that torque converter to kind of 2-foot. It's not quite that sophisticated in the Tesla. It's got to manage brake control along with accelerator control, but we did it. You know, it was a little jerky in parts, mostly down to my fault. I'm still trying to figure out how to drive it, but it's a big improvement over to how it used to be. I'm very impressed so far. So the trailer we're doing today, Hell's Revenge, if we go on to Onyx OffRoad, we can see it's currently open. Technical rating 6 out of 10. We've got some great pictures here. We can see the elevation changes. Onyx OffRoad is a great app which tells you exactly where you need to go when you're out exploring trails. Look at all the trails in like a 5-mile radius. Absolutely wild. Check out Onyx OffRoad and use promo code TFL OffRoad for 20% off. So some oddities about driving the Cybertruck off-road. Now this has that fully steer-by-wire system, which means you have less than 180 degrees worth of movement in the wheel to go from lock to lock. It works really well off-road, and that rear steer is super helpful, but you can also disable it in off-road mode. So some obstacles, some events, you maybe don't want that rear end to swing wide. So all you do is you click the button and turn that off. That's a great feature. There is such a small amount of forward visibility. I mean, the windshield is 1,000 miles away at its base. The dashboard covers like an acre, and the front end is a vertical plane. So I have no idea where the front end is, but luckily the cameras are incredibly high definition, and it's really easy to see where the wheels are going to go based on that forward camera. That is a necessity. I'm not usually a fan of front-facing cameras, but you just have to have it in Cybertruck. There's no other option. One more thing about this steering, which is a little weird, is it's completely steer by wire, right? No linkages. So you get zero feedback as to what's happening off-road through the wheels, which is kind of a problem in a road car. You want to have that steering feel, but in the Cybertruck, it's great knowing that if I hit a rock, it's not going to come bouncing back and break my hand like, well, I've driven some like really old Broncos and Jeeps off-road without power steering, where that's a potential. So that's a pretty cool experience in the Cybertruck.
You might touch back here. Yep, you're gonna touch. You're touching hard. Held up well, actually.
Nice.
This whole thing smushed in and popped right back up.
When you're going down a really steep hill like this, you feel the mass. 6,600 pounds, I believe, for this dual motor version. It's a heavy truck, right? Now, it's not 9,000 pounds like the Hummer, which is a huge improvement. It's amazing, actually, that you can get a real-world 300 miles of range in this truck with 124 kilowatt hours, whereas the Hummer needs over 200 kilowatt hours. Granted, it goes a little further, but, I mean, it's basically a weight difference of like a Mazda Miata between the Cybertruck and the Hummer EV. Articulation in this vehicle still feels a little too limited for my liking. You get a lot of head toss in the Cybertruck. As you get kind of this lateral movement side by side, it's like, oh, suspension will not allow to bounce at all. It's not getting any jiggle. This is a quality high performance item, and that's good on the road, but off the road, it feels just too firm and you get a lot of this action. So I think there could be some work in that. The ground clearance is insane. I mean, in extract mode, 14, 15, 16 inches of ground clearance. I mean, that's just nuts, right? These 35-inch tall tires, they look off-roady based on this unique sidewall they have. They're not that aggressive. You know, if you're really looking at doing some serious off-roading in your Cybertruck, I may recommend upgrading to like a more aggressive, you know, tread block. These are still a little too road-oriented for some stuff. But, I mean, I'm amazed by what they're able to accomplish with a simple software update. I'm disappointed it doesn't come to the truck from the factory. I'm still frustrated at that. But we have it now, and it's like transformed the truck. The last time we were at Moab, we got a lot of heat from people saying, yeah, should have waited until the locker update came out before you took it off-road. And that's fair enough, but we have to test vehicles as they come. You know, where does that train lead? Oh, you can't test this vehicle for another 6 months or a year until X comes out or Y comes out. No, we have to test it as we have them. And now that we have the update, I'm fairly confident in saying it has completely transformed the character and the ability of the truck. You know, before, this thing had a lot of ground clearance and acted like a Jeep Wrangler YJ from the 1990s with very little articulation and very little torque management with wheels flailing all over. But now it's performing a lot more like an electric super truck. When you lock up those mechanical diff locks, it completely changes the game with how this vehicle crawls on the rocks. I'm very impressed so far. It's really a transformed vehicle. So one other feature I want to try here is trail assist. It's kind of like off-road cruise control. I'm going to hit confirm, and this is going to maintain a set speed. So you use a cruise control wheel, setting 1.5 miles there. Now I take my foot off both pedals, and we're going to let the Cybertruck do the accelerating and the decelerating all by itself. Let's see how this works. So we've got a nice little steep downhill coming up here. I'm going to increase the speed to 2.5 miles an hour, and then we're just going to try to crawl it down this rock face. See how it feels. So we're losing traction with the ground, but the truck is now modulating the brakes to try to maintain and keep control. So that's all the truck doing that. 1.5 miles, just letting it crawl. It's actually feeling really pretty good. We're not appearing to be regenning much. It seems like it's mostly the friction brakes that are controlling our descent there. This steering is really satisfying off-road. Having less than 180 lock to lock is super cool. I will say, if you don't want attention off-road, don't buy a Cybertruck, because I think we've probably had 150 pictures taken of us today. So folks, overall, this new locker update has completely transformed the character of the vehicle off-road, at least in a rock crawling situation. Those lockers are true mechanical lockers. The throttle control is excellent. The steering, the ability to turn off the rear steer is a big deal. So it's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better. I still think the ride is too stiff in this kind of terrain. Certainly airing down, if I had a spare, would greatly improve the ride quality, but it is a transformed truck, something I'd feel confident taking off-road. My only complaint is that I know this super hard stainless steel is very dent proof, but I'd love a metal bumper. That plastic bumper is showing some scuffs pretty clearly now, so that would be a cool thing. But anyways, done with the rock crawling, let's try some higher speed sand. Some sand. So I've gone into the overland off-road mode and selected sand, and then we can also try the Baja setting, but let's see what this vehicle is like when speeds get a little quicker. Well, I'll tell you what, first things first, this vehicle sounds like an oversized RC car. That is a wild sound. You just hear kind of this gentle whir from the motors. Really soft sand here. This is a ton of fun. This Moab sand is almost like, it's almost like glass in how soft it is, which means we're going to want to keep some momentum up. Now, what's cool is in the overland mode, I've actually gone ahead and totally disabled the rear steer. I like to have kind of slower, more progressive steering inputs in this kind of terrain. And actually, it does do a pretty good job of allowing some wheel slip. I've got my traction control turned off. Look at that. Ooh, still too much traction control intervention though. It's trying too hard to stop the fun. And in the sand, you don't necessarily want that. You want the fun to continue. Otherwise, you end up getting stuck. But the suspension programming feels pretty good overall. It's a little firm still. This is definitely where I'd want to air some, get some more air out of those tires if I was going to do this, you know, for the next couple of hours if I was in Glamis, for example. But so far, I'm pretty impressed. But let me go into the Baja setting. So in the Baja setting, I can now do a couple of cool things. I can change that stability assist. So I'm going to go to minimum. I can also change the handling balance front and rear, and also the terrain program. So I'm in smooth, but it can also go into rugged or clearance. It also appears to have lowered itself. Yeah, we're down to 10 inches. That's exactly what I want. Oh yeah. Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Now we can get that 600 horsepower cooking. Woo! So this is just a dual motor, right? There's a over 1,000 horsepower tri-motor with 2 motors in the rear if you really wanted to go crazy out here. But this dual motor, even 600 horsepower, that's plenty. Oh yeah, this is awesome. This is so much fun. Surprisingly good. You know, it doesn't quite have the suspension control I think of some of the Fox stuff. Gotta be careful with the steering though, because you're used to giving it a lot of input, and you give it just a little bit too much input, and you forget how much steering angle you're actually giving it, because it's all steer-by-wire. I don't want to roll this thing over. That'd be a tough conversation with my dad. I already scratched it, which I don't think he's too pleased about. Oh, this thing is awesome. What a great time. You know, it's cool too, in a gasoline car, so you're going up a dune, you're in third gear, you start bogging down, you're like, oh shoot, I need second gear, and then you go to push in the clutch, or you try to downshift for the automatic, and then you lose momentum, and you're pretty much done for. With this thing though, you need more power. Oh, instant torque, just give it a squirt. That is awesome. Now, one thing I am noticing is out in the rocks, we really didn't use that much power. I mean, we were out there for probably 45 minutes to an hour. We only used maybe 4%. Out here though, you got a lot of rolling resistance, and now we're really starting to burn through that juice. Come on, nice progressive drift. That's awesome. Wow, what a great time. What an awesome time. I'm pretty impressed with how this thing's doing. It's really, really good. Well, so I removed the front little trim bits, but we have 2 more back here which are starting to come off too from the rear portion. So I'm gonna pull the other one off before it gets pulled off like this one did. All right, so overall folks, the Cybertruck. Wasn't great the first time I brought it out to Moab. Wasn't impressed with the accelerator control, really wasn't impressed with the traction control programming. It was a little bit of a mess. I mean, it's amazing what they were able to give us via over-the-air updates with the locking diffs, obviously, but also some of the changes to calibration and drive modes. Now this truck is much, much more capable. In the dunes, is it a Raptor? No, the suspension still doesn't feel quite as sorted as a Raptor. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Come on, Cybertruck. Oh, this thing is just awesome in the sand. It's really, really good. This is where it shines. Well, what a fantastic day out in the sand in the Tesla Cybertruck. Look, the damage report, we got a scuff in the front and we ended up snapping off one of the little rear fairings, but not a ton of problems with how this vehicle performed. Very impressive out in the rocks and equally as fun out in the sand. So a super great day. And I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed with what Tesla's done. It's actually pretty cool now. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, I've been Tommy, behind the camera Alex. We'll see you in another video.